All right, let's welcome in Brett Goode into the conversation, part of the Henderson Phillips Employer Solutions team. We're going to talk a little Auburn, a little Arkansas football, maybe dive into some basketball as well. Brett, we'll start with Arkansas, and then we'll get into Auburn. 24/7 Sports ranks team facilities every single year, and consistently Arkansas finds itself in the top 25. How important do you think it is with Arkansas Summit having some recruiting disadvantages for them to have some of the top facilities, not just in the SEC, but in college football?
Well, the biggest thing for us, we're recruiting Arkansas. We're not having 20 guys, 5-star athletes every year coming out. So we've got to go to every other state and try and get these guys out of there. So we've got to compete with all the other states, not only the SEC, to get these students in here. And you want to have a top program of your facilities, because not only is it good for recruiting, but it's good for building your student athletes, on the field and off the field on the education side.
Bro, we were discussing a little earlier, and Tommy and I, to be honest, had no idea what this job entails. The Razorbacks hired a new player personnel. Butler Benton, he was at Georgia Southern, worked at a couple other places, Michigan State and Notre Dame, if I remember that correctly. When you were in school, when you were playing football, do you remember what your director of player personnel did back in the day?
They all have different roles. Yes, I remember multiple, and, also in the NFL, we have different titles with that. But a lot of it's, making sure guys are going to class. You've got to be, you're not trying to be their dad or their mom, but you're being their parent, their brother on campus, whether, you're going to have arguments with your coaches, you're going to have problems in classes, and you got to have somebody that you can go to and talk to throughout this whole process, throughout your college career. And hopefully, everybody that they keep bringing on board, you think is going to keep building that core mentality of that locker room and keep them together.
Yeah, Arkansas begins spring practice next week, so it's beginning around the league. And one thing we've begun to have a conversation with you about is the different teams in the SEC West and the SEC teams on Arkansas' schedule. Today, we're going to focus on Auburn, who obviously has a new head coach, Gus Malzahn, out. He's now at Central Florida. Bryan Harsin in. What does Auburn look like this year with a new head coach down on the Plains?
Well, it's interesting. Harsin replaced Gus Malzahn at Arkansas State as well. So, he left Boise State. That was his alma mater. But he's got an uphill battle. They were 10th in the SEC in recruiting, coming in late because, the firing of Gus and then not signing until late. So it's an uphill battle of recruiting. Not only his current players, but now trying to get on the board and getting future classes going. But he's got a great offensive mind. I think he's built a great staff around him. And so far, coming out of the locker room, the players seem to like him.
Yeah. You win with defense in this league. He brings in Derek Mason, who came from Vanderbilt. Defensively, how do you think Auburn's going to look? Because we know you're going to win up front. I saw where Big Cat Bryant's transferring now from Auburn to Central Florida and going with Gus. So Derek Mason, a name people are familiar with, will be the defensive coordinator at Auburn.
He is, and he's a former cornerback, so there's a lot of people thinking that their defensive backfield is going to be better than the front seven, and that's unfortunate in SEC because we know the front seven in the SEC is really tough, and I think his defensive line will struggle at the beginning. But he's got Smoke Monday back there in the backfield, and being a former cornerback, I remember when Richard Sherman talked about him when he got the Vanderbilt job, how much he helped him develop as a cornerback at Stanford. So he's definitely got the abilities to help these young cornerbacks and the cornerbacks that are mature and allowing them to go. And if you can get those guys to be one-on-one, then it frees up a lot of your front seven and makes them look better on the field.
Brett Goode, former Razorback, former Packer, part of the Henderson Phillips Employer Solutions teams, talking Auburn with us this morning. Brett, Bo Nix has been a question mark these last couple seasons, and now he's got a third offensive coordinator. Had Lashley, had Morris, and now Bryan Harsin coming in with his system. How difficult is that, especially for a quarterback, to have to pick up new philosophies season in and season out?
Well, I think, we've all seen that in the state with Arkansas's quarterbacks, just the constant rotation of coordinators, and it is tough. It's really tough. But the thing that he has going for him is, Harsin likes to run the football just like Gus. And, they put up, 834 rushing yards last year, with Tank back there in the backfield. So that takes a lot of pressure off of him. And, Harsin's coming in with 6 consecutive 1,000-yard rushers from Boise State. Now, it's going to be different. to run the ball in the SEC, but, he's got an offensive line that's also coming back. So he's kind of got everything going forward. And, Bo Nix has some of the most starts in the SEC, if not the number one. So he's got that leadership. So if he gets a running game behind him and a good offensive line that can protect him, you do a little play action, and it's going to make him look a lot better in now year 3, but year 1 of this offense.
A lot of times your success depends on your schedule and where the games are at and how they lay out. Just looking at Auburn's 2021 schedule as it is right now, 4 non-conference games to begin the year, Akron and Alabama State weeks 1 and 2. Then you make a trip to Penn State, and that's going to be a big measuring stick for Auburn on week 3.
It's tough, and for them, what they're kind of hoping for is that stadium's not full, but I think it's going to be this year, and it's going to be tough to go there and play. And we'll see really quick how good this offense is and how good the leadership and can they handle adversity. That's the biggest thing. But when you get new coaches and a new staff coming in, it's going to be still an adjusted offseason, adjusted camp as we move forward. But they're going to have to handle this adversity. And if they can kind of stay together as a team, they're going to rely on Bo Nix. A Smoke Monday, like these guys that have been there, and they've got that leadership, and you've got to rely on those guys to stay with the program, stay with it, and just stay motivated. And hopefully we can see, we'll see early how good they do.
Georgia State's that 4th non-conference game before they begin a just brutal stretch of SEC games to begin their league play and what will be 8 straight SEC games. LSU, Georgia, then Arkansas before a bye week. So 2 very difficult games for Auburn to begin play on the road at Baton Rouge and then at home for Georgia.
Yeah, and that's just such a tough stretch. And you got to think by the time they get to Arkansas that we might be able to get them a little down, a little injured, because the injuries are just they're going to happen in football. But to be able to get through that, to get to a bye week, if they can get you got a Penn State win, maybe an LSU or Georgia. We'll see how good LSU here coming off of how they were last year. Georgia's going to be, the Georgia of old that we've seen in the last few years. So it's going to be a battle up front with those two, and then they're going to get worn down. So the depth's going to come into play, and we're going to see how good they can handle them on the offense and defensive line.
Road trips to Arkansas, also have to go to A&M this year, play at South Carolina before hosting Alabama at the end of the year. And, for Gus, that was one way he was measured. It wasn't enough, but we know that Iron Bowl game at the end of the year being played there on the Plains will be an important one for both sides.
It's such an important game, and Gus did a great job in that game, and he has, one of the best records against Nick Saban, and you're measured that way in Auburn. And so that'll be a telltale sign of how he is moving forward. You don't go into that game and get blown out because a lot of things can change. Even if he has a decent season, but you go into that game and get completely embarrassed, everything changes and he could end up getting fired. I don't think they would do that in year 1 unless they got completely embarrassed. But I know that, Nick Saban's one to kind of put his foot down and make sure that he knows that, he runs that state and everything goes through Alabama. So that'll be interesting to watch.
Brett, I know you've been watching this basketball team as we kind of shift the conversation. Is it the most Arkansas team ever, that the best team you've had in 20-some-odd years, you haven't been able to have full capacity inside of Bud Walton Arena, and you won't be able to have full capacity when you travel to within the core of Indianapolis in the Indy area?
It is. I was talking about it the other day. I said, our basketball and baseball, it's just unfortunate for these guys. Because with that stadium, both of them, Baum Walker and Bud Walton would be completely full, and it would be a sellout every single night, and that's unfortunate for these kids, and it's unfortunate for the recruits. That's the other thing that you got to think of, that we're doing virtual recruits for the next year's class because you're always moving forward, in college athletics, and so you hate to see that, but that's also a telltale sign of these coaches of how they're handling this adversity that we're going through. Last season was cut short due to the beginning of the pandemic, and now that they kind of came up and they've all kind of come together right now, and you're hitting stride. And to keep them together, and you just got to keep them stacking success and not get comfortable with where they're at, because this is by far, the end of where you want to be. You want to make a good run in the NCAA tournament, and hopefully they can continue moving forward with that.
Brett, I got my dad a Robert Griffin III cameo for his birthday. If you could have a cameo of any athlete, Razorback, professional, collegiate, to get for you, Monica, one of your kids, who would that be?
Well, I actually surprised just recently for Valentine's Day. I surprised my wife with a cameo from Stoney LaRue. He's one of my buddies, Red Dirt Country, and so he did that, and so I got a lot of bonus points on that. The cameos are awesome. I've seen Aaron do a ton, and to be able to brighten someone's day is just phenomenal. But I heard y'all talking about Coach Broyles earlier, and the thing about Coach Broyles, I remember walking on at Arkansas, getting in the elevator, just him and my family, and he introduces himself, and then he knew everything about me. And I was so shocked at that time because I was a walk-on freshman, just coming up for a recruiting visit, and he knew everything. He was so detailed, and his knowledge of me personally, and it meant so much. So to be able to go back and have somebody like him be able to do another cameo for some of my family, that would be really memorable.
I did not know this story. It's a great story, Brett.
Yeah. So that would be fun. We have a line that a rejoin or a liner that runs on the station with him when that famous speech where he came in with one of Houston's teams and said, "Victory will be habitual." And he just, having a cameo with something like that. And if you could get him to say a line like that, it would have been a cherished, valuable possession of yours. But cameo wasn't around, and Coach Broyles probably would have been great in that role had it been in his day. So.
It would have been. I think we would have had to get him up to the social media standards of today's society, but I think we could have got him doing it.
Yeah. All right, Brett Goode with us. He is with us every Wednesday. We're right now breaking down different teams in the SEC West. I guess what, LSU will be our next one?
Yes.
Yes, so we'll talk about the Tigers, the Bayou Bengals next week of LSU. All right, Brett's part of the winning team at Henderson Phillips Employer Solutions. If you're the person in charge of employee benefits, health insurance, staffing management solutions, they handle all of those things, plus commercial and personal insurance. Hey, anywhere you're listening, Brett can take care of you, specifically the River Valley and Northwest Arkansas, 479-651-2292. Brett, it's easy, and I know you're talking to a lot of people about a lot of things from life insurance personally to homeowners to health insurance plans for work.
That's right. We're doing life insurance. That's a yearly thing. That's a nonstop gift that you can give to your family to protect them. It doesn't have to be $1 million, $15 million. It can just be something small that just takes care of your family and lets them know that, the bills are paid for. They don't have to move immediately in the unfortunate, passing of someone. And then you got, homes that you're constantly coming out of this, we're coming out of this winter with all these pipes freezing. Now we're getting into tornado season, so you want to make sure that you're protected well. And then the group benefit side, we've been getting down pretty hard with a lot of companies of, even on the tax side, making sure that they're getting everything they can to benefit their company and then also benefit, a lot of people don't know you can benefit yourself on an individual basis with taxes. So we kind of take care of all those problems and things that people face throughout the insurance world.
All right, 479-651-2292. That's Brett Goode, Henderson Phillips. Brett, we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.